Good morning, everybody. I'm Ruby and I'm joined by Sarah, the other Taunton Village agent, working alongside me today. Today on today's Talking Cafe, we have SSAFA, Armed Forces Charity, and I'm joined by Mike and Mel. I will add them in now. Morning, Mike and Mel.
Morning.
Oh, I've muted you. There we go. Good morning.
Good morning.
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 How are you both?
Very well, thanks very much.
Yep, very well, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today. If you could just let us know who you are and what you do, that would be great.
You go first, Mel.
Okay, morning. I'm Mel Bradley. I'm Divisional Secretary for SSAFA in Taunton and West Somerset.
Hello, I'm Mike Hodson. I'm one of Mel's caseworkers, but I'm also Chairman of SSAFA Somerset.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. And could you tell us what SSAFA is and what it is you do?
Yeah, SSAFA is one of the oldest military charities. It was actually established 130 years ago. SSAFA stands for Soldiers, Sailors, Airmen and Families Association, which was the original name. We provide practical, financial, emotional support to veterans, serving personnel and their families in times of need. And to do that, we have a network across the country of more than 5,000 volunteers. Here in Taunton and West Somerset, we deal with around 100 cases a year. We have a team of 10 caseworkers at the moment. And we can help with a variety of things that people need, ranging from white goods and brown goods, cookers, fridges, carpets, furniture. Adaptations to properties is something we sometimes do if they're not covered by a disabled facilities grant. EPVs, mobility scooters, has come up quite frequently. We can also help with deposits and removal costs if people are moving to new accommodation. We often signpost to other relevant services, things like debt advice and mental health services. We can provide care home top-up fees if they're not covered elsewhere, and we can also support with things like funeral costs. There are various ways that you can refer into SSAFA, either directly yourself or through one of the agencies in Somerset, and all the details are running along the bottom of your screen. The number for Somerset is 020 8938 3633. And there's also a national helpline called Forces Line, which is 0800 260 6767. So for the financial assistance that we provide, a detailed assessment is carried out by one of our caseworkers on the person's situation and their needs. And that will be carried out locally, usually in your home or in a public place, but at the moment we're all doing that remotely. Verification of military service, either for the person or if it's a partner and an ex-partner, will be required. And we can either get that from you yourselves if you've got any proof of military service, or we can apply centrally to get that proof. The funding that we get is from the other major military charities. It's all run through a centralised system which SSAFA caseworkers can access. So we can access support from all the other major military charities in the country. Some of the things that we don't do, we aren't financial or benefits advisors. So we will signpost you to other people in Somerset who can provide that advice. We aren't trained counsellors or mental health service providers. Again, we would signpost you to the excellent services that are available in our local area. We don't replace council services. We won't step in if a counsellor already involved unless there's a gap. And I'm going to pass you over to my colleague Mike, who's going to give you an idea of some of the cases he's dealt with to give you a flavour of what SSAFA does. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mel. Before I do that, what I will do, though, is just put a little bit of context into what Mel has just said. Mel is Divisional Secretary for Taunton and West Somerset. In Somerset, there are 3 other divisions operating in exactly the same way, one in North Somerset, one in Bath and Frome, and one in South Somerset. So we do cover the entirety of Somerset, and each division has exactly the same capabilities that Mel has just described for Taunton and West. It's important to realise that in the context of the village agents, which who cover the entire county. And of course, as a national charity, similar setups run across all of the counties in the southwest and indeed nationally. So, so we have a broad reach. Cases. Mel alluded to what I might call the easier cases. They're the ones that really are supplying white goods, fridges, washing machines, and so on. We do come across more complicated cases, increasingly so. And I give you as an example, one where a veteran, a retired soldier in this case, had a very heavily handicapped daughter and needed help to adapt his council house to a downstairs bathroom, a wet room, shall I say, a downstairs bedroom, all equipped with the best mechanical aids we could possibly provide in terms of hoists to move his daughter from bed to chair to wet room and so on. Because as she became older, obviously she became much more difficult. It became much more difficult for his wife and him for that matter, to move her around. This involved a great deal of cooperation between Children's Social Services, between the planning authorities within the council and SSAFA and other charities. And we needed to raise in the region of about £60,000. That was raised through a DFG, through local authorities, and SSAFA raised all of the interior fittings, some £14,000 worth of fittings. And I cite this one as an example of the way that SSAFA is an enabler. Not only have we got our own money, should we need to use it, we do draw in all of the authorities to focus on a case and be able to deal with it holistically so that the beneficiary gets the very best result we possibly can. That's one case. You're muted.
It just goes to show collectively how you can work with other people to provide such an amazing essential service. So touching back on the range of people you support, so it's not just directly veterans themselves, it's the whole family and it's continued support, is it? Is that in the cases of bereavement as well?
Yes. Yeah, certainly. There's the direct family members, either past or present.
We have quite a wide remit in that we not only look after veterans, retired servicemen, we look after their families. We also have in-service SSAFA committees that are looking after those that are still serving. And you only need 1 day service, 24 hours, to be eligible. To be eligible, however long it was ago, to be eligible for our help. And we have a range of services, not just the sorts of things we're more immediately talking about now, but we have prison in reach services, we have adoption services, an amount of housing and homes for particular specific reasons, such as visiting soldiers in hospital. We can put people up close to the military hospitals and that type of service.
That's amazing, lovely. Thank you very much. Brilliant. I'm just going to let Sarah back in because she was having some technical difficulties. Hello, Sarah, can you hear us? No, Sarah's having some issues. There we go. Lovely. And how does your referral system work? I know you have a number and you have a website. How is it that once people contact you, what then happens? What happens with their details and who will contact them?
Mel?
Yeah, so usually it comes through your Central Somerset number or email, and they'll do an initial conversation around what the person calling is needing, and then it'll be filtered down to the local area, one of the 4 areas in Somerset, and then a caseworker will get in contact within, depending on the need, but within 48 hours.
But that initial referral could be self-referral. In other words, the prospective beneficiary rings, a GP, family member, anybody can refer somebody, then we take it on and we'll look at the eligibility thereafter.
Lovely. If you're concerned for somebody and you know that they do need support, can you refer without consent, or does the individual need to know that they are referring on their behalf?
You can refer without consent, but we can't work without consent.
So you can make that initial contact and check in.
Yeah, I would suggest calling Forces Line in that case.
Yeah.
For a more central support network.
Lovely, that's great. And a big question that everybody's getting asked at the moment, how has COVID impacted the service you deliver? So are you still able to carry out visits? Is everything remote now? What support has now changed for you?
Well, I'm talking Somerset wide. The pandemic has decreased to an extent the number of cases that we're getting. But that's understandable because people are on furlough, people cannot be thrown out of rented accommodation by landlords at the moment. I have no doubt that as the summer goes on, cases will rise. But you're right, it's made it more difficult to handle each case because we're having to do it, the caseworkers are having to do it remotely. You can't go and sit, except in the most exceptional circumstances, sit with somebody and talk it through. And there's two main drawbacks there. One is you lose the chemistry of the meeting, and that's very important to be able to meet the beneficiary. And secondly, it's very difficult to put together all of the evidence, and a lot of it is paper-based, that we need in terms of incomes, in terms of background, and so on. It's all having to be done over the internet. Now that's fine. Many people are tech savvy, and if you need something, they can scan it to you, no problem at all. But by definition, quite a few of our beneficiaries are older and are less tech savvy. And so you're either reduced to help by people, the beneficiary is happy to be a go-between. Village agents would be a prime example, social service would be, or somebody with a power of attorney or whatever. So the main effect is it slows things down and just puts a bit of glue in what normally is a fairly efficient working machine.
Yes, definitely. And from our role as well, it's vastly different now. You can't get that whole picture that you would do face to face. What people tell you on the phone and how they're actually coping can be two completely different stories, and it's really hard to build that picture without that. We do have, for anybody listening who is concerned about accessing internet, we do have digital support teams. We do have access to smartphones that are kindly donated to us. So if anybody you know is suffering from digital, I don't even know the word, I've lost my train of thought then. If people would benefit from accessing internet and need the devices or support to do so, contact the village agents because we can help you with this.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I was going to say one of the things that we have been doing is working a lot more with village agents actually in the last year or so across Somerset, and it's a really good partnership because I think the village agents cover things that we can't and vice versa. So I think it's working really well. And the partnerships that we're developing with village agents and also people like the Defence Medical Welfare Service who can provide a link into the hospital and the mental health services. There's a lot more joined up working at the moment, I think, out of necessity, but it's really beneficial to the people that we're trying to help.
I think that's a very good point, and it's well worth remembering that I choose my words wisely, that SSAFA and other charities similar to us are perhaps a bit more nimble at times than the local authorities, principally because of the huge amount of work that they have, and that by definition produces waiting lists. As an example, I would give you occupational therapist visits. We can put them in place literally just about at the drop of the hat within 2 or 3 days. And the working together, the joined up working that Mel just referred to, is so important. And it's something we've worked on really hard in Somerset, is to get the local authorities to accept us and us accept them in terms of the quality and the bona fides of our work. So we can now say to local authority, we've got an OT's report. It's here, it's a valid report, and we give it to them. Now it's joined up working, but it's help. And so this trust is so, so important.
I think building these relationships is extremely important. As you say, your role is just as important as an OT's role or a council member's role, and the support you offer may be different, but it's just as important.
Are there any questions for us?
Not at the moment. Sarah's commented just to say she's had some technical difficulties, so she's not coming back in, so we'll be missing that. So do you have any other stories? You said there was another story that you would like to share, so we'd love to hear that.
Mike, I think you had another one you were going to...
Well, this is an example of us being nimble. We are able to access our own money. For instance, I have a pot of money which I can, a caseworker can come to us and ask, can we use this? And this is before they put a case in, before they've harmonized anything. So they would put in a justification, which will come through the branch secretary to, and eventually maybe to me, it depends how big it is. And I can deploy that money tomorrow morning. And an example of that will be, we had a case whereby there was an older veteran, his wife was in hospital, could not come out of, this is during COVID, could not come out of hospital because she required mobility.
Oh,
We lost Mike.
We've lost Mike. He may come back. I'm not sure if it's the extremely windy weather today.
Yeah, it might be.
A lot of technical issues. I just took Mike out. He's still frozen down the bottom there. So Mel, keeping you on board for a moment with dropping everybody. So I was looking through your website, and I think it's fantastic that the amount of people that have done fundraisers to raise money for your charity. And I think that obviously you rely heavily on donations. The same, you know, with us village agents, we have our crisis funds, which are donations, and we can't provide the service without them. So how can people get involved to donate, volunteer, and get involved in your service?
So there are lots of ways, and lots of people do lots of different slightly mad things to raise money, which is fantastic. And at this point in time as well, I think it's really good to have a challenge before you. But basically, if you look on the safa.org.uk website, it will point you to if you want to raise money, and they've got a really good setup for people who want to take on challenges of various kinds, either on their own or at home, or maybe later in this year, hopefully we might be able to get out and about and do something a bit more exciting. But there's lots of ideas and information on the main SSAFA website. Sorry, that's the wind whistling through.
I can see that Mike's back. I'm going to add Mike back in.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. If you live in the sticks, sometimes the internet connection is flaky. It dropped.
Yeah, I was just saying that the weather's extremely windy today, and I don't know if that's impacting all our technology.
I don't know how far I got through that case, to be honest. So
it was you were just starting out, and then you went. So. Oh,
right, okay. Well, I got as far as saying that there was a gentleman and a lady, and his wife was in hospital, and social services would not allow her out into the home until such time as these mobility aids were in place. Key among them was a stair lift. The DFG, the Disabled Facilities Grant for the stairlift, was sometime downstream. We were able to fit it within 2 days, and she was then allowed out of hospital. So that's an example of where we can be nimble and where it is a good thing when the local authority trusts us to get on with it. And then good for us, we manage then to repay ourselves by raising that money later on, other than the normal way around, which is to raise the money first.
Yes, that's amazing. It's really good that you can act so quickly, and it makes a massive difference, because I think we all know once you're in that hospital stage and older, you're on that decline the minute you're there, and it's so important to get back home and in your own environment and be independent. So having that just to get in there and act quickly is absolutely fantastic.
I was going to give another example. Give you another example of some of the younger generation of service people who've left more recently. And often that transition period is a really difficult time for them and their families, and they go through quite a lot of transitional issues getting into normal civilian life, leaving the military sometimes after a long period of service. And we've helped quite a few young families where the ex-service personnel is really struggling either through work or mental health. And although we don't provide mental health services ourselves, we work really closely, as I said, with Defence Medical Welfare Service, who can get them into the mental health provision areas, and sometimes we can access private therapy for people that are really struggling, and that really does change the whole family dynamics, and a couple of times they've been incredibly grateful and said literally we've sort of saved the situation deteriorating into quite dangerous circumstances. So it's a real challenge, and what's really interesting is we never get two cases the same. They're always different. There are always different needs and different situations. So it's a very rewarding role as a caseworker as well.
I imagine when your whole life is military and that's all you know from wake up to go to bed to then going to civilian life, I imagine it is extremely stressful, and you often don't really know what to do with yourself and where you even begin to start off. So that's absolutely fantastic. Elaine's commented saying, are you able to offer support to those who have served in the Territorial Army?
Yes. Yeah, and there are the different military charities have different stipulations around who they help, but definitely get in touch and we can find out fairly quickly what kind of level of support there is.
Yeah,
lovely. And we have another question, just to say, who do you collaborate with to provide the support that people require? So obviously that's case by case basis, but as an example, I guess for bereavement benefits, all that type of thing.
So from the mental health services, we tend to go through Defence Medical Welfare Service, who are have local agents who can help directly in Somerset. We often signpost to the Warrior Programme, which is a fantastic, it was an in-person course, it's currently a remote course. That kind of thing. We also, as Mike's alluded to, work often with the council, with adult social services, housing, those kind of people that trying to help together the person that needs support. We refer often to debt advice agencies, particularly in Taunton, the Taunton area debt advice. They're excellent provider of service. So really it depends on the needs of the person that's contacted us, really, whether we use a local or a national service. Lovely. Mike, have you got anything else?
No, my internet popped out for a second then, so I missed a bit of what you said. We will go, if there is a bona fide help there, we'll go and find it there, basically, providing we trust the quality and the source.
That's fantastic. So other than, obviously, it has to be military and served, is there anything you cannot support with? You go to people that are in debt and things like that. Is this something where you will signpost to get people the support they need but cannot help, or will you just support the whole way? very, very often we cannot, and nor will grant givers that we go to,
support what I might call personal debt and pay it off. But I would just caveat that it depends how the debts come about. It depends on what type of debt it is, and it depends on the family circumstances. So it's not a hard and fast rule. I have known cases where I've thought this isn't going to fly, and we've managed somehow to pay off some debt. But as a general rule, debt is not supported.
Fantastic, lovely, thank you. So I've noticed that you're on every type of social media, which is fantastic. And you have a whole YouTube page, which is full of the most amazing stories of people explaining their experiences and how you have supported them through. So I highly recommend people go and watch a few of them. It will just brighten your day, just to let you know how they've been supported and moving on. I've just had another question. So Chrissy's asked, how does SSAFA work differently to Royal British Legion? Is there specific reasons for contacting one or the other? Apologies if this has been raised. Oh, no, it's not been raised yet, Chrissy, thank you.
We work very closely with Royal British Legion, and we'll talk crosswise about cases. The difference between us is the British Legion's remit is a good deal wider in some senses in the way it works. It does run homes, as you know, and does not casework in the same way as we do. We are effectively a caseworking charity. We take the beneficiary at the point of the problem and take them right the way through, providing they're eligible and that case stands up, right the way through to the solution. That said, almost every one of our cases is also referred to the RBL and other charities as a potential grant giver. So I think it's worth saying, I might have confused people by saying that. The way we work is we do the caseworking for other charities. And we'll then put in, we have a common across the board, we have particularly military charities, we have a common IT system and the same form, so we can do this all over the internet. As I said, in the first instance, we will build our case and then go to providers who we know will accept that case as a possible source for providing grants. And that might be a regimental association. If he served in the Royal Artillery, the soldier, for instance, we go to the Royal Artillery Regiment, the Army Benevolent Fund, Royal British Legion, and so on, and put the case to them. And the quality of the case draws the grants. As I said, only if we want speed or we don't get a grant out of somebody else and we think there is still a case there, do we resort to using our own funds, either national funds or local branch funds. So I think that probably puts it into a bit of a better context.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Debbie's written as well. She said, so the length of service, you said serve from 24 hours onwards. Does that get taken into consideration with the support that you give?
No.
Depending on the length of service?
No.
No.
We are absolutely non-judgmental and impartial. So if you've done 32 years, you'll get exactly the same attention as if you've done 24 hours.
Brilliant, thank you. And Sarah's written, if anyone was interested in becoming a caseworker or a volunteer for SSAFA, how would they do this? And are there any requirements to apply? For a start, they put a big smile on my face. We're reasonably well recruited for caseworkers in Somerset, but that doesn't mean to say that we don't want more. The number of caseworkers and the number of cases, no caseworker wants to run with lots and lots and lots of cases. They're volunteers after all. So if you wish to become a caseworker, use the numbers that are running across the bottom of the screen. That will take you into the system to be able to volunteer. And I think that's probably the best way. There is a little bit of word of mouth, but not a great deal.
I was going to say to answer the question about who can be a caseworker. It can really be anyone. You don't have to have had any military experience in the past. I think one of the biggest skills that is required as a caseworker is an ability to listen, be impartial, and really understand people's situations and their needs. There is an IT requirement. You need to be vaguely IT literate, because sadly everything has become fairly electronic these days. But we offer a training. There's a 2-day caseworker course, so you get the full training.
That's fantastic. So if anybody's interested, please give a call or an email in, because that sounds great, and it sounds like you can make a massive difference to somebody.
Yes, it will, and it is a very fulfilling volunteering operation.
Lovely, that's great. Did you have anything else you would like to add at all, and any other stories or any other things you can support with which you haven't raised yet?
Certainly not from me, but what I would say is that to the audience, whether they're on now or they're watching this later, thank you for watching. And if there are any subsequent questions, use the SSAFA Somerset number and ask for Mel or me, and we will answer them. And or if we can't answer them, we'll put you in touch with the person who can.
That's fantastic. And also, as you've worked alongside us before, you know who we are. So you can feel free to contact us if you would like us to speak to SSAFA on your behalf. We'd be happy to do that, even if it's just a quick inquiry. That's not a problem at all.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And apologies, Sarah had to leave off there with technical difficulties. So a little bit shorter than we were hoping for, but I think we covered everything. And thank you very much for your lovely stories of how you've made such a massive difference to people, and just explaining what SSAFA is and what you do. So I think that's amazing. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. Thank you very much.
Great. Lovely. Take care. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.